Hello friends, Ambarish welcomes you to the Excel learning series. Thanks for tuning in first of all, and we are using Microsoft Office Excel 2016, and we will look at various functions. We will begin with lookup techniques. A lot of people have the habit of calling them as reference techniques as well, reference functions or reference techniques or lookup functions. Yeah, and then there are various other categories of functions in Excel. Okay, now I have a data here. I've got a sheet that says ORG data, stands for organizational data, and then there are some more sheets in the file called as functions. Please understand this is a dummy data, and to start off with, we will look at lookup functions. The name of the formula is lookup. You know, the first function that I will talk about is the lookup. I am not referring to Vlookup or HLookup yet. I will start with the lookup function in Excel. Now, I've been given a data that consists of 8 columns, and you can see that the employee code column is sorted in ascending order. That is a requirement for the lookup function. What I want to do is I would like to find out the name of the employee, the first name of the employee, depending on the employee code. So if I go to any cell of this spreadsheet, let's say I, all right, and if I type any employee code in the next cell, that is in the J cell, the J1 cell, I should be able to get the first name of the employee, right? So there are some 100 employees given to us here, and there are some, which means 100 rows plus the header, and then there are some 8 columns given to us here. Okay. Now, like I said, the prerequisite of the lookup function is the column on the basis of which we are looking for some information has to be sorted. And not just sorted anyhow, it has to be sorted in the ascending order. So our employee code column is already arranged in that ascending order. Okay, so I go to the next cell, I begin with equal to. Remember, all Excel functions, it's a good idea to start them with equal to, all calculations as well. I will type LOO tab. Remember, we don't have to type the complete spelling, just the first 3 characters. Use your arrow down a few times and then tab. In this case, as soon as I typed LOO, it was the first one that came in the drop down, so I just pressed tab. Okay, now the lookup function has a tooltip like any other function in Excel. The tooltip has 2 versions. Let's look at the first one. Okay. The first parameter, or the first argument that it is asking is the lookup value. Now, based on the employee code, I would like to get the first name. Hence, my lookup value is the employee code, which is already written in I1, comma, it says lookup vector. Now, I will go to my employee code columns, first cell, and I will hit Control Shift down to select the entire employee code column. Okay. Control backspace to come back to the active cell. Of course, I can use the scroller as well, but that requires mouse. Control backspace can quickly take you back to the active cell, comma. Notice this, that when you put the comma, the next parameter gets highlighted. It's the last parameter now, the third one. It says result vector. What is the result that you want based on the employee code that you're typing in I1? Well, I could be interested in the first name, like I said earlier, or maybe I could be keen on knowing the last name of the employee, gender, department, anything. Let's just go with first name for now. So I will select the entire first name column, just like I selected the employee code column. I will come to the first cell of the first name column and Control Shift down, and that's it. I'm done. I can now hit enter or Control enter, and there you go. Glenn is what it displays. Let's just quickly verify this. Employee code number 12 is right here, and yes, Glenn is at number 12. Let's quickly go back and change the I1 to maybe 8. Check it out, it quickly changes to Michelle. Let's have another round of check. Let's put 4 and it quickly comes up with Aaron. Yep. So yes, the function is working, and all Excel functions are dynamic. Yeah. Okay, now this was about lookup. We will now go to Vlookup. Remember, once you learn Vlookup, it is very easy to understand HLookup. Generally, 90% of the times, in my opinion, Vlookup is used in the corporate world or in the Excel usage world. Right? The V stands for vertical and the H stands for horizontal. In Vlookup, we will be interested in the columns. In HLookup, it will be in terms of rows. Yeah. So what we did right now was neither Vlookup nor HLookup. It was just a simple lookup function. But now we will go to Vlookup. What I want is, in the I column, I would like to get a display of incentive figures of these employees. I'm just putting the header there as INCE. But yep, what I want is I would like to get a display of their incentive figures for a particular month or a quarter or 6 months or any duration. This information is already given to me in the next worksheet called source data. So I quickly move to the next worksheet. Control page down is the shortcut for that. And this table has information about incentives in the 4th column. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to pick up the data from the G column of the second sheet, that is source data, and paste it in the I column of the first sheet, that is organizational data, ORG data. What I can do is I can simply do a copy paste. I can copy the 5633. I know the 5633 is meant for employee code number 1, right? So I can go to the earlier sheet. I can look for employee code number 1 and I can paste. Similarly, I can copy the 2355 from the second sheet. It's clearly evident that it's meant for employee code number 5. I can go to the earlier worksheet, look for employee code number 5 either manually or by using the find technique, and then paste. But imagine the amount of time that I will lose if I continue doing this for the rest of the guys. Also, because I am doing this manually, there is always a chance of errors. Hence, let's just not do it manually, and this is where Vlookup can come into the picture. This is where Vlookup will be handy. The basic requirement of Vlookup is there has to be a common column between the two sheets that we are working on. And most of you must have realized that this requirement was also in the case of lookup. The employee code was the common point in the earlier example. Here as well, it's the employee code which is common between the sheet number 1 and sheet number 2. The other requirement of the Vlookup is the data for which you are doing this entire exercise, in this case it's the incentives, should not be on the left side of your common column. So if in the second sheet the data is prepared like this, that is incentive column is on the left of the common column employee code, the Vlookup will not work. Hence, it is our duty, it is the user's duty to ensure that the value that we are looking for, in this case it's the incentives, should always be on the right hand side of the common column. Please note here that it does not have to be the extreme rightmost column. It could be anywhere in the table, but has to be on the right hand side of the common column. It could be the immediate next column, it could be 2-3 columns away, it could be 5 columns away, but remember the value that we are looking for has to be on the right side of the common column. Okay. And also friends, we can see here that the incentive column is at number 4. I mean, I can simply just figure out from here that employee code number is the first column. I can simply just drag this and I can use fill series and check it out, it comes up with 4. So I know that it's the 4th column It's the fourth column where my desired value lies. It's the incentive. Okay, all right, let's start with VLOOKUP then. Let's just go to the earlier worksheet, the organizational data worksheet. The incentive is what I would like to get a display of, and I would like to do this in the I column. So, okay, the first, so I come to the very first employees row. I begin with equal to VL tab. It says lookup value. Now, first of all, let's understand that the VLOOKUP function has 4 parameters. Lookup value means your common column. In this case, it's the employee code. So let's just select the very first employee code, which in this case is A4, comma. Next parameter is table array. Our table array is given to us in the next worksheet, the source data worksheet. So I can quickly navigate to the next worksheet, and I can select the entire table. I can use control space bar to select the very first column, that is the employee code column, and then I can use my shift and arrow right. I can just manually keep selecting more and more columns, or else I can, after selecting the first column, I can simply just press Control Shift arrow right. Remember, to avoid the hassle of selection using the keyboard shortcut or mouse, we can also use the concept of name, right? I can just assign a name to the entire table, and then I can call that name while I'm in the function. All right, now that I've selected the column, let's just put a comma. We can go look into the formula bar. You will see it's asking for column index number. If you look at this table, 4th column is where my incentives are given to me, and we did this counting as well in the beginning by putting up a column number putting up a serial number for each column. So it's 4 incentives are given to me in the column number 4 from the first column. Please note here that we will not start counting from the beginning of the Excel spreadsheet. I mean, we'll not start counting from the A column. We will always start counting from the common column. Okay, comma. Now it's asking us whether we are dealing with a case of approximate match or an exact match. We are dealing with the case of exact match here. Exact match means that the employee codes given to us in the second sheet should match exactly, remember, exactly with the employee codes given to us in the first sheet. So yes, we will go with the exact match. Spellings are very important. So even if there is 1 and a dot, it's not going to capture the proper incentive figures. So I can either select false or I can manually type 0. Both are absolutely okay if we are dealing with the case of exact match. That's it. I'm done with my VLOOKUP. I don't need to bother about the closing parenthesis. I can hit enter, and that's it. I've been taken to the very first cell, which quickly pops up 5633. And now that I'm doing this not for just the first employee, I will double click to ensure that the formula is applied throughout the entire column. And there you go. It quickly displays NA, hash NA for the second, third and fourth employees because their employee codes are not mentioned in the second sheet. Let's quickly go and check. Yep, there you go. One has a figure of 5633, but there is no 234. We have a 5 here directly, and he gets 2355. Let's just check. Let's go back to the earlier sheet, and yes, 5 gets 2355. Likewise, we can keep navigating down, and you will see the figures which were meant to be given to those employees are available right here in the incentive column. Now friends, this was a case of VLOOKUP. Remember, VLOOKUP is vertical lookup. Okay. On similar lines, we can also do edge lookup. Let's just try that. Let's go to the next sheet, and in this sheet we will take an example of edge lookup. Please understand, VLOOKUP and edge lookup are on similar lines, just that the VLOOKUP is for columns, while HLOOKUP is for rows. Let's just look for educational qualification of any employee code. Okay, now here the employee code's information is given to us row wise, as in the entire information about the first employee code is given to us in a row, which is row number 4 of the sheet. Similarly, in the next row it talks about the entire information about the employee code number 5. Okay, so the information about employees is given to us row wise. Hence we will look at HLOOKUP here, equal to HLOOKUP. So tab, I'm looking for the value which lies in the column of education. So K5 is what I will select because education is already mentioned there, comma. Table array will be the entire table. So I can select the first cell and then control shift arrow right, control shift arrow down. While doing the VLOOKUP, I selected the entire Excel column by the control spacebar. So similarly here also I could have gone with a similar technique, that is shift spacebar, but it's also okay to select just the relevant table and not the entire Excel column or the Excel row. Okay, and also please keep in mind, like I said, we can also use the concept of naming the entire table to do it in a slightly different manner. Okay, so comma, column, it says row index number. For the VLOOKUP, this parameter shows up as column index number. Here it's row index number. Okay, now let's take an example that I'm looking for the first employee's educational qualification, that is employee code number 1, right? Now that information is given to me at the second row. Remember, the first row is the header, and then second row consists of the information about the first employee. So it's going to be 2, right? Comma 0, because we're dealing with the case of exact match. We can put a false or a 0 there, and that's it. I can hit control enter or enter, and there you go. It comes up with master's degree in sales. Let's just press F2 and change this row index number from 2 to 3. It shows up graduation. That is correct, because graduation is mentioned in the third row of this table. So if you're looking for employee code number 5's education, this is what we need to do. Let's take another check, F2. Let's put that row index number as 4. Please check here that it says master's degree in finance for the 4th row. Let's press enter or control enter, and there you go, right? So what we've seen is we've seen VLOOKUP as well as HLOOKUP, right? Okay, let me quickly summarize. VLOOKUP is in terms of columns, while HLOOKUP is in terms of rows. Okay, now let's look at another lookup technique. Let's just navigate to the next worksheet, control page down again. The name of the sheet is travel. Okay, I've been given distances in kilometers in this entire table. So let's take an example. I would like to travel from Chennai to Lucknow. Okay, the C2 cell is my starting city, and the C6 cell is my destination city. All right. Now in this cell, the cell which is merged, I would like to get the distance between Chennai and Lucknow. Now this is a case of a vertical as well as a horizontal lookup, which means if I look for Chennai, I will have to select the entire row that contains Chennai, and since I'm looking for Lucknow, I will also have to select the entire column that consists of Lucknow. The common cell is 2038, and that's the answer. Now I would like Excel to do this for me, because I can't keep manually selecting the required row and the required column every time I want to find the distance between any two cities. In Excel, we've got a formula and we've got a function to do this, and the name of the function is index. So I begin with equal to IND tab. Again, like the way we saw while doing the lookup function, this function also has two versions of the tooltip. It says array. Array means I will simply select the entire data, the entire table. So remember, I will come to my very first cell, control shift arrow right, control shift arrow down. This also could have been done with the concept of naming the entire table range, but I think I'll go with this manual selection because the table is not very huge. Comma. Next is it says row number. Now I am looking for Chennai because my starting station is Chennai. Let's just count. Okay, so Chennai is given to me at row number 15, but that's for the entire Excel spreadsheet. If we talk about the array, that is the table which we've just selected, Chennai happens to be in 7th row. In kilometers would be my first, Mumbai second, Delhi 3, Jammu 4, Bangalore 5, Kolkata 6, and Chennai 7. All right, so I can put 7 here. Remember, I am doing this with the manual count. Okay, comma. Let's just look at the next parameter. So when we hit the comma, the next parameter becomes bold or highlighted. It is now asking us for column number. Like the way we counted row number of Chennai, we will now have to count the column number of Lucknow. So let's do that. In kilometers would be my first column, Chandigarh would be my second column, Hyderabad would be my third, and Lucknow is my fourth. So I type in 4 and that's it. I can hit enter or control enter to get the answer. Now friends, you must have noticed that I'm manually counting the column number and then the row number as well. So if the table is really big, if it consists of more than these many columns or rows that we have in this table, it is tedious to do a manual count. That's a slight problem with the manual counting method. Also, what I would like to happen is when I go to the drop down here, there is a drop down here, and if I change this from Chennai to, oops, okay, well I think I'll have to redo the drop down. So let me quickly select the cell, data validation. I'll just apply the drop down. So okay, so I come to Mumbai and control shift down. This is a feature called data validation to apply drop down. Okay, it's done. Let's also do this for Lucknow. That is the destination city. I select the cell first. I go to data. I go to data validation. I'll remove the incorrectly applied drop down, and I would like to select this entire row of all the destination cities. So from Chandigarh, I can do a control shift arrow right. I can say OK and done. Okay, so if I come back to this drop down and if I change this from Chennai to Mumbai, so let's take an example. I would like to now travel from Mumbai to Lucknow. The answer should change. And here, because we have counted the column and the row number manually, it is always going to stay at 2038. The ideal method to solve this problem is using the match function within the index function here. Kindly note that the match function can also be used standalone without nesting it with any other function. But in this example, we can use the match function inside the index function to make this entire function dynamic. Also, I would like to mention here that the match function can also be very well used within the Vlookup function so that the counting of the column numbers is not required to be done by the user manually. The same goes with HLOOKUP. The match function can be used within the HLOOKUP to avoid the manual counting hassle of the row numbers. Yep. So coming back to this example of traveling between a city to another, let's just press F2 here and edit. But before that, let me quickly give you a standalone example of the match function. Let's go somewhere here. I will type equal to match. It contains 3 parameters. The first one is lookup value. Let's take an example that I'm looking for Mumbai, which is in C2. So I select C2, comma. It says lookup array. Now, where will I find Mumbai from? So let's take an example. I will find Mumbai from, let's say, this entire column, for example. Yeah. So for instance, I'm looking for Mumbai from the entire column, that is A9 to A15. What's the position of Mumbai in that column is what I'm looking for. Comma, match type, because we are dealing with the case of exact match, let's just put 0 and enter. So it says number 2. That is correct, because Mumbai is at number 2. The in kilometers is your first, Mumbai is second. Let's also do this for Lucknow. So I come somewhere here, match, lookup value is the cell which contains Lucknow. Of course, I can come here and type LOCKNOW within double quotes because it's a text. Lookup array would be this entire row, comma 0, because we're dealing with the case of exact match. Enter, and see it says 4. Let's press F2 and let's do this for Shimla, a beautiful city in the north part of the country, India. Okay, so I will type Shimla, double quotes is not to be forgotten, and see it comes up with 5. Yes, it's correct, because if you start counting from in kilometers, Shimla is in the 5th column. Now that we have seen two separate instances of the match function, where the match function was used standalone, let's use the match function within the index function. So let's press F2. We will remove the 7 as well as the 4, because remember we had manually counted the row number of Chennai and the column number of the destination station, right? So we'll remove that. Also, I can take off the closing parenthesis, so delete. Now where it says row number, let's use the match function. Rather than manually counting, let's use the match function here. So match, MAT tab, it's asking for lookup value. Lookup value would be Mumbai. Now this we had done in the other cell, so it's very easy for us to understand. Comma, lookup array would be the entire column which contains various starting cities. I'll put 0 to ensure that we are dealing with the case of exact match. Now friends, here I will have to close the bracket. The closing parenthesis is required here because I'm not completely ending the entire function in that cell. The moment I close the bracket, it quickly reminds me that okay, my match function is over, but I'm still within the index function. I can put comma. It asks for column number. Like the way we have put up a match function for the row number, I can again put a match function to determine the column number as well. So let's type MAT again. Remember, we're dealing with the case of two match functions inside one index function. So lookup value this time will be Lucknow because we're looking for C6 because we're looking for Lucknow, comma. Lookup array would be the entire first row of the table, including the in kilometers, comma 0, because we are dealing with the case of exact match. And that's it. So we have supplied all the parameters to both the match functions, and also the index function is over. Now, because there are more than one functions put up in one single cell, I will not simply hit enter or control enter. I will hit double enter or control double enter. That's it. It's done. And there you go. I've got the answer. Right? Now let's just change this. Let's just change either the starting city or the destination city. We can either change one of them or both of them. Okay, let's go with both. So let's just go to the drop down here. Alt and down arrow is the axis, is the way to access if you do not wish to use your mouse. Alt and down arrow, and let's just go with I can choose anything. Let's go with Delhi. Okay, and see Delhi Lucknow quickly comes up as 569. Let's also change this Lucknow to Jaipur. So Delhi to Jaipur is just 261 kilometers. It's right there, right? Let's give it another go. Let's just go to the drop down and let's go with Bangalore to Jaipur. It's 2049. Let's go with Chennai to Jaipur, it's 2187. And all these answers are coming up from within this entire table. Okay, so this was about the lookup function, the Vlookup function, the Lookup function. We also did the index function, and then we also used the match function within the index function.